Good evening. It is November 16th, 2023, and I would like to welcome you and to call to order the meeting of the South Brunswick Township Board of Education. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Read this statement of advance notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act of NJS, the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6, also known as the Sunshine Law, was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. The primary purpose is for board members to discuss and vote on board business. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the board secretary has caused notice of this meeting 48 hours prior, including date, time, location, to be posted in the South Brunswick Public Library, the board office, and filed with the township clerk and communicated to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger. It is also posted on the district website. Roll call, please, Mr. Pulowski.
Mrs. Julie Ferrara. Mrs. Laura Hernandez.
Here.
Mrs. Deepa Karthik.
Here.
Mrs. Alicia Khan.
Here.
Mr. Raja Krishna.
Yes.
Mr. Mike Mitchell.
Present.
Mr. Barry Nathanson.
Here.
Dr. Smita Raj.
Here.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Pulowski. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's meeting agenda? Mr. Mitchell?
Second.
Second, Dr. Raj. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nay? Approve of the meeting agenda. Next order of business is the board minutes of September 28th, 2023, and October 12th, 2023. Board Secretary, Mr. Pulowski's draft of the minutes from both meetings were sent to all board members on Monday, November 13th, 2023. Are there any corrections to the minutes as distributed? No, then the minutes will stand and are written as and approved. Thank you. Okay. We have a slight adjustment to the agenda tonight, and it is a report of the President. I'd like to take a moment to reflect on the recently concluded election season. It is with a mix of appreciation and concern that I, representing this board, address some crucial matters that affect us all in this community. First and foremost, I'd like to, all of us, extend the congratulations to Mike, Raja, and Smitha for winning the election. The final vote tally has not been provided yet. Hopefully it will come within the next week or so. However, the trust the community has placed in them through their re-election is a testament to the faith that you all have in this community in their ability to lead with honesty, integrity, and kindness. Their dedication to the betterment of our community, coupled with a commitment to respectful discourse, has not gone unnoticed. And on behalf of the board, I express our sincere gratitude. Yet, as we celebrate this victory, we cannot ignore the challenging aspects of this election season. There were individuals who sought to gain favor through fear-mongering and the spread of misinformation. Despite this, our community demonstrated resilience and refused to succumb to negativity. I commend Bilal and James also for maintaining a standard of conduct that aligns with the principles we hold dear, contributing to a respectful campaign. Our township endured an embarrassing few months tainted by disgraceful comments on social media in which insults were hurled at members of this board, ranging from misogynistic and racial slurs to baseless accusations. They are not only uncalled for, but are detrimental to the spirit of South Brunswick. Such behavior does not reflect the values of this community. Have we forgotten the importance of civility in civic engagement? Respectful behavior is not only an expectation, but a necessity for constructive discourse. The golden rule of treating others as you would want to be treated should be our guiding principle. It is disheartening to see rudeness and a lack of respect seeping into our schools and affecting our staff and our students. Our community must be vigilant in teaching our children the values of respect, kindness, and civil engagement. This diverse and hardworking board operates without drama, upholding parliamentary rules that are also practiced at state and federal levels. It is disappointing to see these efforts questioned or belittled by some members. The board is committed to responsible communication, but it has faced unwarranted tagging, harassment, and bullying on social media. Henceforth, this board will no longer acknowledge questions posed on platforms that do not allow for factual or intelligible information to be discussed. While differing opinions are natural, purposeful attempts to divide the community must cease, and misinformation will be countered appropriately, supported by facts. South Brunswick is not perfect. We on this board are not perfect. We have challenges ahead that will require unity and a collective effort from all. In conclusion, on behalf of this board, I extend gratitude to the community for your trust in an exceptional school system. As we move forward, let us all strive to be better, engage in respectful dialogue, and work towards a brighter future for South Brunswick. Together, we can overcome challenges, uphold honesty, integrity, and character, and build a community that truly reflects these values. Thank you. Thank you. Next order of business is the report of our student representative, Defon Lee.
Good evening, everyone. Starting off with some news from the high school, our Hugs for Brady fundraiser was incredibly successful, raising over $10,000 in support of childhood cancer awareness. Student Senate is very excited to make our donation to Hugs for Brady to continue to fund student government activities. Our November Student Senate meeting took place on the 15th. Members of the Student Advisory Board, which discusses issues within the school and student body, will be meeting with Mr. Varela on November 20th. A meeting with all members will be held in December. Our October Breast Cancer Awareness event had a great turnout. We had prizes such as t-shirts, pens, and bandanas. Students collaborated to create an All Hands In Against Breast Cancer handprint collage that is currently being displayed in the high school alongside stories of SBHS staff, breast cancer survivors. The month of November is dedicated to honoring our veterans. Student Council made several displays in the school honoring the 9 veterans who currently work at SBHS. Their classroom and office doors were also decorated as our way of saying thank you. On November 14th, we wore red, white, and blue, or yellow, for Veterans Day, and this upcoming Friday, we support Red Friday to remember everyone deployed. Upcoming activities also include Deck the Halls, an annual Student Council fundraising event where we decorate the outside of classroom doors for the winter holidays. This is a beloved SBHS tradition that we are very excited to continue. We have already received over 40 orders so far, and they are coming in fast. This is the second year that we will be decorating the board office as well. There are several evergreen trees set up throughout the school as our giving trees. Students and staff have the opportunity to purchase gift cards and place their names on the tree. The gift cards are given to families in need in South Brunswick. We are very excited to announce that Student Council will be hosting a semi-formal winter charity ball to support Hugs for Brady. The dance will be held on January 26th and will be open to all grade levels. It will take place in the Annex Gym with a DJ, as well as the freshman cafeteria, where there will be refreshments, a photo booth, and areas to hang out. We are really excited to be able to host this event, as it is something that students have been asking for a long time, and we are thrilled to make it happen. The SBHS Asian Cultural Club recently hosted a Diwali celebration with food and performances that was very well attended. Our newest club, Chess Club, is proud to host new and experienced players. We have students participating in upcoming chess tournaments with other schools. Some other great upcoming events at the high school are the King of Prussia shopping trip sponsored by the classes 2026 and 2027, and the senior class is sponsoring a trip to the American Dream Mall. The SBHS marching band will be performing at the first ever NFL Black Friday football game, where the Jets will take on the Dolphins at MetLife Stadium. We are also excited to announce the SBHS PE teacher, Ray Ostrowski, has been nominated for the NJAH PERD Teacher of the Year Award. The winners are announced in February, and we are incredibly proud of him for earning the honor of being nominated. The gymnastics team placed fourth at GMCs over the weekend. Our JV gymnasts also competed at the novice GMC meet on Wednesday at St. Thomas Aquinas. Shika Anand was named to the GMC All-Conference team. We had 3 gymnasts who competed at sectionals on Saturday, November 4th, so way to go gymnasts on a fantastic season. The SBHS girls volleyball varsity team secured the 9th place in the GMC tournament and headed to face the Rams of Wardlaw Hartridge. The Vikings showed their might by sweeping the Rams in 2 consecutive sets, securing their advance in the tournament. This program made great fundraising efforts for the Making Strides for Breast Cancer event, supporting the American Cancer Society and raising over $900. Lastly, junior Giselle Parker was awarded a spot on the All-Red Division team this season, a very well-deserved honor. That's all I have for everyone today, and I hope we have a great night.
Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Our next order of business is the report of the superintendent, Mr. Fetter.
All right, well, today I proudly wear my Jets lanyard. Not because the Jets are worthy of me wearing this lanyard, but because our marching band was invited by the New York Jets to play at halftime of the first Friday after Thanksgiving football game ever.
Yay.
So the Jets are clearly better at picking marching bands than other things that they do select. But it's a fantastic. They are also paying for the marching band to get there in coach buses. So that's good, because otherwise they'd be walking. But that is a really great thing. It's an honor for the incredible hard work those students and the staff that works with those students do, and the families that support them. It is an amazing, amazing situation. I do recall, and I was reminded, I wasn't here when it happened, but when the Super Bowl was at MetLife Stadium, they also went and played during the Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
So this is a long tradition of excellence in our marching band. The fact that the Jets were able to identify that is pretty amazing. And we're thrilled to be able to have them go on Friday. So it was a last-minute entry on your board docket today to approve that. So please approve that.
Of course.
Or you can face the marching band parents. So anyway, great stuff, and that is just truly amazing. I'm going to echo the congratulations to our 3 incumbents, Raja, Smitha, and Mike. I am just going to add one little piece. It is not certified yet.
Yeah.
The election has not been certified.
Tuesday.
So just to be clear on that. But I'm very confident, based upon the numbers we have seen, that the certification will just demonstrate what we already know. So congratulations. And I also want to echo Elisa's words. Congratulations on running a clean, honest campaign to the 3 of you, and for not engaging in other behaviors that were being engaged with by others. So that's not easy, I'd imagine, to sit back. I know I wanted to write a lot. But I think I'm banned from one of the sites because, because I don't know why. I actually don't have a Facebook page anymore because I was hacked and wiped out, so I'm done. So anyway, awesome for the 3 of you and for this board, but mostly for this community and these kids. So thank you for that. In line with that, last night was our first meeting of the District Advocacy Committee. And we had 70 applicants put in for that. And we did select, I think we're about 55 people strong, and most of them were there last night. And some really good ideas. It seems to be a very motivated group of people to work on this. We've outlined a whole bunch of things. Lisa's going to finalize the last document that's going to go out to that committee, and we're also going to share that with the full board as well as the admin team and leadership team so that they can see that. And that we also videotape the meeting that'll be posted on the website for the whole community to see the work of that group. The first meeting was really an education. I don't know how many times I have to repeat the same presentation, so I felt bad for people that have seen it 10 times maybe by now, talking about the issues with the state funding on that. But yet, it was for some people there, it was their first time in some cases, and there's still discussions that people don't know. So part of the advocacy committee is to figure out how do we get the word out to people. It's obviously not working to do them here and to post and to send them. What do we do? So that's some work. But we have a 2-3 month window here to alter this. I am going to share one piece of information with the board and the community. Today, we did receive an email from Senator Andrew Zwicker that he will be posting a bill at some point in the near future, and that bill is the bill is designed to say districts that have been cut state funding would have the ability to go above the 2% cap on spending if they so choose, without a vote, is my understanding. Now, we worked with Senator Zwicker on that exact bill and gave him our perspective and language to use in that bill. We have not seen the bill yet, but as soon as we do see the bill, that is something for our advocacy committee to also work with and get involved with. So when a bill gets put forth, there most likely will be a hearing at some point. We would have people from the advocacy committee there doing that. So we also want to just be able to say the work we have been doing hopefully will have some impact. And again, the no impact, we're in trouble. So let's hope we get a lot of good impact. A positive, real big positive, of course, our preschool program. We have submitted for next year. We've submitted an increase again of almost 100 students, bringing us to just shy of 350 regular education students, plus about another, it comes out to about 40, almost 50 special education students. So that's getting us closer to that, called that preschool universe, where we start, well, eventually where we want to have every parent that wants it would have access. Our next move is, and does require us to move outside of the school district to what's called a mixed delivery model, where we'd be working with a third-party provider that is overseen by our district. So that's a whole complex issue that we've been working on. Suzanne, Megan, Tanisha White have been the three that have been leading the charge, visiting schools, and it's a tremendous amount of time and work to identify a partner, but it's the right work. We also want to let our families know, if you know anybody with a 3 or 4 year old that's looking for preschool, please have them go to the district website and apply. We'll be sending out a postcard to targeted areas of the community where we want to identify kids and get kids opportunities into these programs. What we realize is reaching families that have nothing to do with the school district yet is difficult, right? If you have a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, you're not on any lists yet. So how do they even know if they don't know? So we're trying to do that. Tanisha White runs that side of things at the preschool level, and I know she's going to like go to clergy. She goes to the local grocery store. She's out and about trying to get everybody involved. And this next layer is coming out, I guess, come out within the week, I guess, right? Within a week, we'll probably have, before Thanksgiving is our goal, if we can, to get out the letter to the community. So that's exciting. So again, all that's happening. The form closes December 31st. We're going to be making decisions much earlier than last year. As we do this, we get better at it. So that's all happening for a clean, crisp opening for next year, hopefully at full capacity at the almost 350 regular education students in September. Okay, quick homework-free reminder. The Thanksgiving recess is a homework-free, so no tests, no assignments, long-range projects, that kind of thing, and no tests given until November 30th, so that kids have a chance to get back in. It's also American Education Week this week, and each year we do this before Thanksgiving. It honors the team of people who work in our nation's public schools. It's a big piece. So that's going on. We have Thanksgiving coming up. We all know that. We have something that we'll be talking more with the board about. We have a weird initial calendar for next year. It's not a very favorable calendar for next year. Where things fall is difficult next year. So we're going to be working on that and trying to get that into a better place than it currently is. It's not in a great place. Right now, the last day of school is June 26th for next year. Harley, I heard you from here. Defan, you have to control her, please. So there's some other things in the calendar we want to also fix and work on that. The problem is there's a lot of things that you can't fix. So we're going to try and get creative. The reason I bring this up is I think the district is accustomed currently to the full week of November attached to this. We have to look at everything for next year because we have it's a challenging situation for next year. So just know it's coming. Staff will be involved. A lot goes on into this particular calendar. So hopefully I have something to you by the December meeting that you can look at. That's our goal. But there's some ickiness to it. I don't like it. Harley's going to have to look at it and give me a sign-off, obviously. You know, you're in, Harley. All right, folks. This is our last meeting before the Thanksgiving break. We have another meeting in December. But before I finish, I'm going to turn it over to Marty Abschutz and Bobby Binder from the Education Foundation. And again, I want to reiterate, the Education Foundation this year gave the school district $42,000 for our engineering program at the high school. And I don't know what to expect right now, actually. But we're going to turn it over to them, and okay.
Thank you, Mr. Feder. I'm Marty Abschutz. I'm president of the foundation, and I'm putting my cycling gloves on, and now I'm going to put my helmet on and show the right way that the helmet's supposed to be worn. We're going to talk about the Tour de South Brunswick, which is the first Sunday in June in 2024, June 2nd. It's always the first Sunday.
We are not here to talk about the Tour de South Brunswick. We are here to talk about the poster contest for the Tour de South Brunswick.
Oh, that's right. Sorry about that, folks. Yeah, we're going to have a poster contest for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders this year to submit their posters by February 29th. Nice day to pick, because starting the contest probably in mid-January. Stay tuned to all the various social media, and it'll be coming home in Friday folders, and it'll be on our website. But it'll be 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders creating a poster on 8.5 by 11, and the winning poster will get a $25 gift certificate to Target and be featured in all of the ads that we do for the Tour de South Brunswick, which again is on the first Sunday. So it'll be on Instagram and X and Facebook, in our own webpage, and hopefully it will be on the school district site with perhaps an additional notice in the district art show in April. So thank you, and again, look out for it in the Friday folder and all the different media that we have, and yeah, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Oh, thanks, Bobby. I completely missed that.
And in conclusion, we'd like to thank everyone who came out to support the Taste for Education that was held on October 19th, and to remind everyone that money that is being raised going forward, a lot of is going to be going to the engineering initiative that we've started in South Brunswick, and we're looking forward to giving a lot of money. Thank you.
Yeah, I will say, it seems so long ago that we had the taste, but it was like standing room only in there. That was a really great event, and I won a Mealy pizza oven thing. So that was the good news. But it was really a great event. Did you have over 200 people?
I meant to add that. We had
Over 200. That was amazing. Good job, and thanks again for the donations. Remember, donate to them because it goes to the engineering program. So thank you guys very much. And that concludes my report.
Any questions? Thank you very much, guys. Ed Foundation. Any questions for Mr. Feder? So I just want to say one thing. I know that the Jets is really important to him, but for those Giants fans, we need to actually cheer for the Patriots and the Commanders because we need the number 2 draft pick. So just everybody cheer on those two. Forget the Giants. We really need that. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Feder. Moving on, our next order of business is a board brief presentation. So I'd like to call Ms. Jody Mahoney, principal of Greenbrook School, and Ms. Sherry Sassine, supervisor of K through 5 language arts, social studies, who will be giving a board brief on dyslexia. Thank you.
Yay. Hi, everybody. I'm Jody Mahoney. This is Sherry Sassine, and we are two of the core members of our core team of our SBSD Team Dyslexia. We're really excited that you wanted to hear more about this, so we're going to give you a little bit of a snapshot as to what we do and why South Brunswick is really known as a dyslexia-friendly district. So, oh, I don't have the clicker, do I? Oh, it fell. There we go. Now I do. All right. So before we move on, I want to just sort of make sure that we all kind of know what dyslexia is, and kind of lay the foundation here that 1 in 5 students may struggle with reading or may be on the spectrum of dyslexia learning difference. And research shows that early intervention can increase success for students. So 1 in 5, 20% of our students may be struggling with reading. And that may be diagnosed or not formally diagnosed. But the thing is that dyslexia masks intelligence, and intelligence masks dyslexia. So our students who are struggling with dyslexia are highly intelligent, and they know how to sort of mask this or cope with this in lots of ways, and so they may get to middle school and high school without us even knowing, and then it's really showing up. I put in here, I'm not going to read it to you, but it's there for you to read. This is the International Dyslexia Association formal definition of what dyslexia is as a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. So I can give you a minute to read that or just familiarize yourself with the formal definition. And one of the reasons that this definition is important to note is that it is, with the neurobiological origin, it's sort of in this place between our education world and the medical field. And so schools can't officially diagnose dyslexia at this point, but we can certainly recognize indicators of, and we can certainly know the interventions that make a difference. Still in terms of diagnosis and formal diagnosis, that really sits with our neurologists and our reading specialists, but it is a learning difference that affects the way that we process information, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Those who are dyslexic may experience difficulty with learning their letters, sounds, decoding words, manipulating text, reading comprehension, fluency, written expression, working memory. But there's a lot of strengths for our students who are dyslexic, and those include verbal communication, visual arts, computer science, design, sports, thinking outside of the box. Our entrepreneurs, our business owners, more than 40% of them are dyslexic. And if you look at your actors and your musicians and your creative minds, many, many, many of them have said that they are dyslexic and wish they had known that earlier. So there are so many strengths to embrace. Once we just know what's going on, we can certainly make sure that we're in a better place to embrace this learning difference. Back in 2014, New Jersey passed 3 laws, and these are the 3 laws that they passed. 2 hours of mandated training for dyslexia for appropriate personnel. Typically, that's our K-3 staff, our special educators, our speech and language pathologists, and our child study team members, K-12. Screening for any child showing indicators of dyslexia by the end of the first semester of 2nd grade, and we'll talk to you a little bit about our screening processes. We have it just built into our kindergarten through 3rd grade interventions, and also dyslexia is now identified under the Code of Law as under the specific learning disability. You used to just say specific learning disability. Now in New Jersey we can say dyslexia, which is a big deal because there are still many states that don't, there are still some states that don't even recognize dyslexia at all, which is crazy. And there's states that are sort of reticent to sort of say dyslexia, but we do say it. So if there is an SLD that's identified related to dyslexia, we can specifically write that in an IEP if needed. So in 2017, with the support of the Board of Ed, I was able to start my doctorate in educational and organizational leadership at UPenn. And in 2020, I completed that program with a dissertation called Both Sides of the Table, Schools and Families Aligning Expectations for Students with Dyslexia. and it focused on the experiences of parents and school administrators in supporting students with dyslexia. And I bring this up for two reasons. One is because the board here and the community was super supportive of me and being engaged in that program, so I appreciate that, but I also wanted to link it to the work that I continue to do in moving forward, both for South Brunswick as dyslexia-friendly district and also helping other districts do the same. So what I found was that the parents in public schools really felt frustrated. You can see from the word cloud that felt that they were being denied, they were devastated. Their experiences with public schools around dyslexia were horrible and disgusting and uncomfortable and sad. And school leaders, when asked how are you handling supporting students and families with dyslexia, said, well, we think the parents would say, some of it's good, some of it's bad, we're trying to do our best. So clearly, a difference of opinion about sort of what those experiences were. And this cartoon is one of my favorite. My child has dyslexia. Unfortunately, the school system has a learning disability in that area. We don't want to be that district, and we haven't been that district. Back in 2014, when we first started our initiatives here and created Team Dyslexia, as soon as those laws were passed, we began to create a core team that put a focus on making sure that we were making the mandate a mission. For 9 years, we have been dyslexia friendly. And what does that mean? It means that our teachers are aware, they are informed, they have the resources they need. We are proactive, not reactive. And we have a Team Dyslexia, a core team that goes across administrators with elementary, middle, and high school. And we have school representatives in all of our schools that help us make sure that we're turnkeying information and keeping our eye on the prize. October just was Dyslexia Awareness Month, and our teams in our district celebrate that by wearing red. Red is one of the colors for dyslexia awareness, and typically we celebrate that on October 15th for the 1 in 5 statistic, and you can see some of our teams there wearing their red and sporting their fancy South Brunswick School District Team Dyslexia shirts that have that logo on the bottom, that dyslexia is not a disease to be cured of, but is a way of thinking and learning, which has really been sort of our tagline as we embrace this really not as a learning disability, but mostly as a learning difference. So you can see, I mean, this is just a snapshot of a couple of folks around the district, but we put it in our newsletters, we put it in our parent communications, we announce it to our students, why are you seeing red? These are the people who can help you. And these are the folks that are keeping this initiative going year after year after year. So Sherry's gonna talk to you a little bit more about how we've made ourselves be and what we continue to do in being dyslexia friendly and our screening process, and then we'll come back and answer some questions, just so you kind of know about the continuation of all the work that goes into keeping our eye on the prize, okay?
Okay, so this timeline outlines the work we've done since 2014. So we've been pretty busy for the last 9 years in the curriculum and assessment world. The timeline includes training for staff, strengthening our identification protocols and student screenings, integrating appropriate interventions and supports, and selecting curriculum resources and materials to better teach all students. So we plan to add to this timeline in the future because our work is ever evolving. Okay, so here are the list of the professional development that we've been offering to our teachers over the last 9 years since the dyslexia legislation. We're very proud of the professional development that we offer because we believe that we are very responsive to the needs of our staff. We try and keep on top of the hot and current topics in the literacy world, so we make sure that our staff is aware of those. Many trainings that can happen annually get a little stale, but we really try to keep it really interesting for our staff and make sure that the topics are what they want to learn and what they want to know about. So we've been very intentional about keeping it fresh and keeping it new. So we tailor the PD every year. And each year, the training is personalized to meet the needs of the staff at the various levels, that being elementary, middle, and high. So the legislation does not necessarily require us to train teachers beyond grade 3. However, we believe that casting a wider net is super important to support students who have dyslexia. So we make sure that the offerings that we provide are for pre-K through 12th grade. Okay, so this slide here just has a lot of pictures of different programs that we currently have in the district. It speaks to the many structured literacy programs in particular that we've adopted in the general education classroom or through instructional support as part of our multi-tiered system of supports. So these programs focus on the critical foundational skills of phonological awareness and phonics, and it uses a multisensory approach based on the Orton-Gillingham principles. So, so it's a mix of what we use in intervention, what we use for the summer intervention program, as well as what we're doing in the Tier 1 setting, which is your general ed classroom. Okay, so this screening process, it took several years to develop, so I feel like it's still a work in progress as we evolve and learn more and update our assessments. This outlines our 3-step dyslexia screening process in K-5. So we screen for dyslexia as part of our overall universal screening at the elementary level. So 3 times per year, fall, winter, spring, each elementary school engages in what we call day-to-day. So there are established benchmarks for our literacy assessments that we administer to students. And a benchmark is just a standard against which something is compared. So we use multiple benchmark assessments to measure student growth over time. So students are not just screened based on a single measure, it's multiple measures and it's over time. So this slide outlines our internal benchmarks to identify students who may possibly need additional support in various academic areas. So as part of the step 1 in the process, which is the graphic on the left, we are particularly interested in the assessments that screen for phonological awareness, alphabet knowledge, phonics knowledge, and reading level. So at the end of the school year, the rapid automatized naming, which we also call RAN for short, that assessment is administered to all kindergarten students around the end of May, beginning of June, and it requires students to name an array of letters as quickly as possible. And I call it the tiny but mighty assessment because it doesn't take very long to administer, but it gives you a big bang for your buck. So it's important because students that present with a slower than average RAN time typically struggle with word level reading. So it's really an important part of our screening process. So we're glad that we have it as part of the multiple measure battery of assessments. So we really use that compendium of assessments to help with the screening of dyslexia. And then steps 2 and 3, you can see outlined on the right-hand side. They outline the process that once a student's been identified in step 1, that's the multi-tiered system of support. That's the process students can go through to find additional intervention in the areas that they're identified a need. Okay, so this slide speaks to instructional technology. We have various Google tools and extensions that can easily be added to any student's Chrome browser, and most kids have their own device, so it's very helpful. So voice typing is something that we use a lot, and it's really just an accessibility tool for any student that has it in their Google Docs. And Read Aloud is a text-to-speech extension that you can also add for free, and it's a screen reader, so it'll read aloud to the students. We also have a number of ebooks that are available. We have a subscription to Raz Kids in K3. We have Mac and Via through our libraries. We have Bookshare through our child study team, and we also have Epic, which has books that read aloud to students, and that's a free site where you can just access books for kids. So we're actually going to be looking at our instructional technology, and we haven't spent a whole lot of time recently looking to see what's out there and what's new, but I think going down the pike as we're ever evolving, this is one of the areas we want to revisit and see what's out there. It's been a while since we've looked to see, but there's so much. There's already a lot happening in the schools, so we're very proud of the work that we've been able to do thus far.
So as I mentioned, we have been on the track to be dyslexia friendly since the get-go. This has been a passion of ours from mandate to mission, and we're a leader and a model for this district. Both Jerry and I have spoken at the Decoding Dyslexia conferences, both back 5-6 years ago, and then most recently, last May or June, when they asked us to come back and share the work that we've been doing. Our district, a few years ago, was tagged to write an article about our work for New Jersey Family Magazine, and we have many folks who actually find us on our website and have contacted me from out of the district to say, I saw your name on the website, tell me more about what you're doing, what can I bring back to my district, what happens if I want to move there because of the work that you're doing, what can you promise me? Well, I can't promise you anything, but I'm glad that you found us. We are committed to sending staff to conferences where appropriate for new learning, whether it's the IDA conference or other Decoding Dyslexia or other conferences that are about this learning. We share webinars with them. And so we continue to keep our eye on the prize with communicating and knowing what's current, and also making sure that we as a district are informed and aware. The worst thing that anybody could do would be come and say, do you know anything about dyslexia? And a teacher or somebody would say, I don't know anything about it. We wouldn't want that to happen. That's not being dyslexia friendly. So that's sort of in a nutshell about sort of this passion project. But it is certainly a lot of work and a lot of just points of pride for us to know that in New Jersey we are certainly a leader, and that we continue to really model what this could look like. And when we share with other districts our personalized professional development and the fact that we keep being responsive to what the needs of our staff, they and parents, they are really impressed. They just, most districts are just doing a video webinar, 2 hours, check it off, and it's stale and it's old and it's boring. And we are never about that. We're always saying, what do our staff need? We make it differentiated. If you're more of an expert, if you're new to the district. So we're in the middle or beginning of developing this year's training as well, but it's been impressive. Casting that wide net for our staff, K-12, including specialists, has also enabled us to help people understand not only what's happening in their roles as a district, but also in their roles as parents. So I've had many staff members come to me and say, like, wow, I'm really glad that even as a PE teacher, I was included in this conversation because I have a kid of my own who I think I'm worried about, and you've given me some resources and things to think about. So we will take questions if you have them. Hopefully we didn't overwhelm, but we appreciate the opportunity to share our work.
Excellent, thank you. Is there any questions? Yes, Mr. Nathanson.
So at this point, congratulations on the presentation. It was really nice.
Thank
At this point, are there dyslexia type of books and materials that the kids can get in the individual classrooms?
So oftentimes students struggle with decoding if they're presenting with indicators of dyslexia. So we do have decodable texts available for instruction in K1 for sure, and grade 2 if need be. Also in the instructional support world, we have those books for kids. But audiobooks are an important component. So it kind of takes away that hurdle of having to decode the words, but they can listen to a story and watch and see the pictures flash on the screen. So the Mac and Via, the Raz Kids, the Bookshare, all of those online resources are an important piece to provide access to books for the students.
And what happens during testing?
Okay, so during testing, if the child has an IEP, then they will be permitted to have text-to-speech or speech-to-text, whatever accommodation they need for testing. So including if they have a 504 too. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Questions? Yes, Dr. Raj.
Thank you. There is an initial assessment to determine whether a child is struggling, whether a child has a dyslexia, has the condition. So will there be an assessment at a later point in time to see if the interventions are helping?
To see if the interventions are helping?
Yeah, helping the child.
So we do have progress monitoring that happen prior to any type of, a formal diagnosis of dyslexia. So we do try and provide interventions for students in the Tier 1 setting, which is your general ed classroom. Sometimes students are pulled out into a Tier 2 setting, which is your instructional support. That's the smaller group instruction, where they receive more targeted instruction based on what their assessments are saying. So the instructional support teacher does have a progress monitoring, battery of assessments, tools that are aligned with the programs that they're using with the students to keep track, to monitor student progress over time. And we have the whole SST process, and Suzanne can speak to that.
Thank you.
Ms. Karthik?
Yeah. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I had just one question. I saw on the presentation you had.
You speak louder too.
Sorry, I need to speak louder?
Yeah.
Okay.
Soft voice.
You had on the presentation, I think, kindergarten, grade 1, and then grade 3 to 5, right? So if we have children who are in middle school who are undetected, or we don't know about them, or in high school that have gone through elementary and middle school and with us, but we don't know that they have dyslexia, do we have a program to identify that group?
Students in the middle school and high school are going to probably be coming up in their SST process as well, and identifying the tiers at those levels as well. So that while their screening and assessments aren't like the kindergarten and first grade and second graders, and even some of our older kids can come through our generic screening tools at the elementary level. If they've made it to middle school and high school and they're still struggling, they're probably being brought up in the SST process, and then we're screening them there. But certainly the goal is to match the intervention to the need. So all the programs that Sherry shared with you that were at the elementary, many of those programs can work at the middle school and high school too. Wilson is one of the programs, so no matter how old you are, if you're struggling with certain sounds and things like that, you'll start at Wilson level 1, whether you're in high school, whether you're in first grade. So we're matching those programs and interventions to the needs of the students. Since dyslexia is a spectrum disorder, it varies for each child what they'll need, and with the progress monitoring will help us know which programs are making the most difference for those students. But we are working, that's why our core team is a K-12 team, and we're working to make sure that the teachers, specifically at middle school and high school, are also trained, because it's not just about reading. It will impact your ability to read a social studies text, to get through an English, a novel. It will a science passage, all of those things. And so, as I said before, dyslexia masks intelligence, and intelligence masks dyslexia. So it could be that they could get to middle school and there be a slower reading rate, or a slower fluency rate, or slower, maybe more difficult to comprehend, and they look like they're doing fine, and then the amount of text that they have to handle at some point becomes overwhelming, right? But at that level, middle school and high school, it's probably going to enter through the SST process, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. You said SST, right?
Yes, that's our student support team process, and that's a process where teachers and staff can identify a student who's having an issue in a particular area, identify a goal, bring together appropriate interventionists, and put a plan in place and monitor it as it's implemented.
Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Hernandez.
Is this on? Is this on?
Going on.
Not that I need a mic. The SST, is that your INRS team?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And then also, so dyslexia, it is something that never goes away, correct?
Correct.
So what we do here is we give the kids different strategies on how they can advance themselves using these different strategies. It's not like it's cured, we just teach them how to move forward it, correct? So that's what we do. We figure out on our SST/INRS teams, and then go forward with that, and if need be, go to a 504 or an IEP.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on is, because this is a spectrum learning difference, some students will get interventions in general education in Tier 1 or
Right.
Tier 2 and be totally fine with how they're engaging in their learning. Some students may need a 504, and with some accommodations, text-to-speech, or extended time for reading, be fine and able to access the education. And some students may need an IEP, which will give them accommodations and modifications in the curriculum with even more specific strategic intervention. And what we're really trying to do is make sure that what the interventions and the help is matches where the student is. And
Right.
it's I'll go back to the intelligence piece. Because many of these students are so gifted, we want to make sure that they still have access to the highest level of rigor with the accommodations they might need to access the education, right? And so it can be in general education, it can be in special education. Not everyone is the same. And we've even implemented for a very small amount of students, what we've created is called a dyslexia action plan. So once they go through the INRS process, our student support team process, and we've already identified what we know is working for them, for a very small amount of students, we say, because dyslexia doesn't go away, it's not a disease to be cured of, we say, this is what this student needs. These are the protocols that are working for this student. They do have dyslexia. Next teacher, make sure you understand what this child needs. So we're not reinventing the wheel each year with a new goal, a new plan. We know what's working. We will revisit that annually just to make sure as the student gets older, they'll have new strengths, right, to bring to the table. But it's something that we've added into our SST process and managed by our interventionists to say that once we know what's happening, specifically with this child, we don't have to keep reinventing the intervention.
I would think this would go on any level, not just in your little pocket of, the dyslexia, but whether they're just in a regular ed class or have a 504 or an IEP or nothing, that whatever accommodations that the team has come up with, follow them throughout, right?
And that does happen. It happens more readily if you have a 504 or an IEP, it's more readily passed along with, and the SST work is also passed along. But in this very niche, couple of kiddos where we say, we know exactly what's happening, we know what this child needs, we figured it out, we don't have to keep going back every 6 weeks to say what is the process. We have the dyslexia action plan as well, and the action plan also identifies both the struggles and the strengths.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I just have a couple. How does this impact students when they have to deal with NJSLA? And I know that Suzanne and Scott are going to talk about that, but I mean, if they're considered an IEP, how do we manage that if they're having difficulty reading when they're doing standardized testing?
Yeah, if they have an IEP or a 504, written into those plans are accommodations.
It's an accommodation
Yep,
through
so that's
that.
whether it's speech to text or text to speech or a scribe or some directions read aloud. There's lots of things that can be put into the plans for them. If they're a student with a dyslexia action plan or just that we're giving general accommodations to we really need to make sure if they have something that needs to be done repeatedly, if they are needing extended time, they're needing speech to text, all those things, and those are things that are working, then we're going to need to do something more formal. And for NJSLA, you'll have to have a more formal plan. They can't just within the no talking with your hands. Within the context of the elementary world, we try to figure out what our best practice is and what's really working before we formalize something like that. And we can do that. We have the gift to say we can give them a little extra time.
And also just for English language learners, do you find that they also have reading with dyslexia?
Yeah, so that's complicated.
I would imagine. You don't have to go into detail, but I'm just curious.
So dyslexia exists in every language.
Right.
And what is difficult, I think, sometimes is for us to know what is just learning a new language and what is really difficulty with manipulating language. And so sometimes that gets a little bit messy. How much more time do we give them? But there it is in asking the questions, both to the family and looking at their previous records, do they have difficulty in their native language, right? And so it's in the research a little bit and asking those questions. The other piece I think that's significant here is that dyslexia is hereditary.
Yeah,
and so asking the questions to our youngest families as they register is, are there any reading issues in your family? Anything you want to tell us about? Having said that, my son was diagnosed when he was in 2nd grade. As he was diagnosed, I diagnosed my husband and his father. And if you had asked me when I registered my child if I had any reading issues in my family, I would have said no. I didn't know at that time.
Right.
So, but it is hereditary, and it does. It's likely that more than a spectrum, somebody else has it.
Right. Wonderful. Well, we know why we're still a Lighthouse District, because we have you guys in charge. Thank you so much. Any other questions before we end it? Thank you so much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate the presentation. All right. Okay, next order of business is Mr. Fetter and Ms. Suzanne Lefborn up to the podium for a presentation on district goals and assessment results. Members of the board, you will receive the presentation earlier this week. If you can access it, if not, you feel free if you want to sit in the front row. We'll be looking at our computers for those that are wondering what we're looking at.
Yes, some of the slides are a little bigger when you look on your laptop. So, good evening, everyone. Annually, as part of our CUSAC and state monitoring, we are required to publicly present out on our spring battery of assessments to our public. So that is what we are doing here this evening. These are tests that were administered during the previous school year. So a few of the initial slides are really just to orient us and remind us about our mission and our vision here in South Brunswick. Just focusing in on that mission: ignite your passion, nurture your potential, and embrace your future. We have core values that guide our work, and those values include an emphasis on equity, partnerships, and innovation. This chart just helps to remind everybody how much state testing occurs over the course of a school year. Believe it or not, at this moment, my department is preparing student demographic data to upload to the state to ready for assessments that will happen later this spring. So it is a year-round task in our buildings. Our students who are multilingual learners participate in the Access Assessment. Those are students that are learning a second language and have entered into our program. That is an assessment for all grades. Students who participate in the Dynamic Learning Map Assessment is a very small percentage of our population, and you'll see some information on how both of these groups performed. The NJSLA, which you heard Lisa reference when she was asking about accommodations for students with dyslexia just a few moments ago, the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment is testing our students in ELA, English Language Arts, and mathematics. You can see from this chart grades 3 through 9. That has shifted some over the years, but 3rd through 9th grade participate in that assessment. NJSLA Science is a component administered in 3 different grade levels, 5, 8, and 11, kind of at those capstones, and it measures the science instruction and their knowledge. And then newer on the horizon is the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment. And if you tuned into one of the board meetings in the summer, Jamie Bomer had provided information. She helps manage our assessments. The students, we reported out results at that time, because when you receive the results, you have 60 days to report those out. So we reported that in the summer, so it won't be part of tonight's report. Although we are preparing, we had students retest in October, so we will have some information on that coming shortly. So I think it's important just to highlight that with any standardized testing, there are definitely some analytic challenges that we face. So it's a single point of data. It's that moment in time. The state scores are not always provided for us to be able to compare ourselves to how South Brunswick is in comparison to the state of New Jersey, and for that matter, other districts or other like districts. And most importantly, you will see tonight slides that show you how we did on the NJSLA in those grade levels, ELA and mathematics and science, in comparison to the state. But we are also required to report on our subgroups. And when we report tonight on the subgroups, you will notice we have no state comparison yet. It's not made available. One of the other pieces of our analytics of late is we are still rebounding from the impact of COVID. When you think about the impact that had on our students learning virtually, hybrid, and then returning, we know that that has had an impact. And then the last point, our special education students have been identified to have struggles in various areas. They may learn differently. They are assessed the same way at the same grade level standard. When you are found to be eligible for special education students, there is often a discrepancy that you are functioning 2 or more grade levels below. When they sit for the NJSLA, they are tested on the grade level that it says in the student information system. So the WIDA Access for ELL's test begins somewhere around February. It's usually around President's Day. It's administered by Tom Decker, who has oversight. He is our supervisor of world language and the ELL program. He works with his English language learner teachers throughout the district. They set up the schedule and they assess students during their regular instructional block. Our students in kindergarten are assessed one-on-one. Our students in grades 1 through 12 are assessed online. Grade 1 through 3 also has a written component, not all online. There are many domains. I keep looking at Laura because I know what you do for a living. They are assessed in multiple domains: reading, writing, listening, oral language, comprehension. I'm reporting out tonight on their overall composite score. And so I think it's just helpful to let our public who's watching and those in the audience know what our enrollment looks like within our system, how many students participate in this assessment. So if you look up on the chart here, you'll see that I've provided you 2 years worth of data, the tested year, which was last year, and the year before that. You can see that we remain pretty consistent in the K2, about 170 students. You will see in the last year, we had an increase of 30 students in that grade level band of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. 6-8 remained pretty much the same, and we saw a little bit of decrease in our high school, and that really just is when students are entering, found eligible for those interventions. This chart is a 2-year comparison for you. The blue represents the 21-22 school year, and the gold represents the 22-23 school year. The way that I've presented the information here is that you can see bands. The bands at the bottom represent that overall composite score on those elements that are measured on this assessment. 1 to 1.9 is this emerging level of language, and or of the English language, I should say. And when you look to the far right of the chart, the 4, 5, and beyond is what is needed to exit the program. I think what I would like the public to understand is that ELL students are really one of our more transient populations. When they enter the system at any point in the year, if they are here when we test, they test. So if they enroll in December, January, they test in February, and like the rest of their cohort. One of the other things that's of note with this assessment is it's given when we've had roughly 5 months of instruction, and there's still 5 more months of instruction to go. The program is delivered in pull-out services for K through 5, and in grades 6 through 12, it's an actual course that the students have as part of their regular schedule. The other thing to note is that our students may remain in the program for multiple years. We know that it takes several years to acquire the full English language when you're coming from a different country, and sometimes it's based on the age you are when you arrive to the States. It's also based on the language, your dominant language, and that transference into English, how those sounds that you heard Jody talking about and the phonemic awareness, how that is translated. So I think that this illustrates that we know we are working with our students to move them through that progression. It's very individualized and customized for the learners in this program. The next group is our dynamic learning map. It's an assessment for our special education students, but a very small percentage are eligible for this assessment. And it's based on need. And it's when the NJSLA is not the most appropriate measure for students. But we are restricted with the percentage that we can put forward to take this assessment. This is managed within our special education department. Last year, Megan Plummer was the supervisor who had oversight of this. This year, it will be Jackie McCarty. And this supervisor works with the teachers to train them. They administer the assessment over a period of time, score, and submit those results. And so they are also tested in English language arts, mathematics, and science, if that's their grade level at the time. So you can see that the number of students that participate in this is a smaller set. So it's about 50, 60 students taking that. You can see that there are 4 ranges here from emerging to advanced. The at target, which is in gold, and the green advanced is where we want to see our students moving towards. You can see some are at that emerging. And this combines all of the grade levels. While not required to report out on the AP testing or the SAT data, we find it important to share and represent the high school and the things that are happening up at that level. I think cause for celebration or acknowledgement to the staff at the high school working with our students in those advanced placement courses. South Brunswick, as you may have read in previous communication, received a platinum distinction for our college credit, which represents the percentage of the graduating class that scored a 3 or higher on the AP exam. The platinum in college optimization is the percentage of students who took 5 or more AP exams in high school, and at least one of those was taken during their 9th or 10th grade year. And the silver honor roll, silver in college culture, is the percentage of that graduating class that took 1 or more exams during high school. And as you see in later slides, that's really a point of pride in increasing the number of students that are taking those advanced level courses. So to begin with the SAT, this year we chose to add the national class average on SAT to give perspective. 3 years worth are represented here. The way we read the chart is the date given for the class of 2021. The gold represents South Brunswick. You notice the gold theme. The blue is New Jersey, and then that gray or the lighter blue is the national. You can see in each of these areas that our overall average exceeds New Jersey and the national. You could see that same trend continues for the literacy, the reading, the language arts component, and the mathematics. And really, if you look at it over time, 2021 was kind of still that tail end of COVID, and you can see that that performance still remains consistent in how our students are performing. So the AP program, we have a really rich AP program and a variety of offerings in our high school. When I talk with friends that have students in other districts, just to hear how many are offered and the opportunity at our high school is really exceptional. This assessment has moved also to online. Mr. Ruman at the high school manages this with his high school teams and the teachers of those tested courses. One of the things that I would highlight here is the way that you're going to read the next few charts is you'll see a participation rate for 2022, which is on the left, and the current year, 2023, is in the gold. You could see that we tested a few more students in the 2023 school year. You can see that we had an increase in the number of freshmen taking AP tests. You can see more than half of our juniors and seniors participate in an AP exam, at least one. And you can also see the number of exams administered. More students took, a few less exams administered, but you will see that our junior and senior participation rate remained over 50%. The next chart here explains the exam frequency and performance. What we chose to capture here is some of the assessments that were given with the greatest frequency. You can see 2022 on the left and 2023 on the right. You can see that this past year, 255 students took statistics with an 89% pass rate. If you compare that to the previous year, where only 214 students, so we increased the number of students taking that course and actually maintained and did even better in the passing rate. And of note, the overall pass rate for our AP exams for all exams, was 89% this year. Sometimes we're curious about some of the tests that are offered, so we've categorized them here. You see the mathematics and computer science. You can see that the total number, we had 709 tests administered in 2022, and we increased that to 813 in the past school year. We have those science tests listed below. The biology, 111 students with a 98% pass rate. Chemistry, 106 with a 98% pass rate. You could see we had an increase in the number of students that sat for the environmental science exam, again with a good pass rate. Shows you our English. A few years back, we had an emphasis and focus on increasing the number of students in those classes. We made some adjustments to our prerequisites. I would say that over time, we are watching for a trend of increased participation. We want to see more students enrolling and taking those classes, and also finding success, meaning that we've either maintained that same percentage of passing or we've increased that percentage of passing.
Let me just show an example, just make sure. So just a real quick example, if you look at the macroeconomics. So in macroeconomics, you had 172 take it last year, with a 68% grade. Generally speaking, if you increase the number of students who take it without an increase in your total population, right? So our number of students in junior and senior have reduced, right? We've gone down. So when you look and say, well, we've had a reduction in macroeconomics, for example, a few less kids took it, but they had a massive increase in their pass rate, right? That should be expected. If you have less kids taking it, you would have a higher rate. What you want to see, that's beautiful when you see it, is microeconomics. In microeconomics, when there was 160 students, you had a 78% pass rate. The next year, you had more students in a smaller N of available students, and they really outperformed the year prior. So when you see an increase in participation and an increase in score, that's always the goal. The one variable that sits in all of our scores related to this is the whole N is reduced. So seeing a slight reduction would be normal. The other part, you have different kids that do different things. And so you can see, for example, the two students that took Chinese in the 2022, they didn't take Chinese in our school. But we got credit for them, so we're glad they did well. This is just the way it works sometimes. You're looking, and Suzanne talked about trends over time. So next year, what you're going to see is 22, 23, 24, right? But the post-COVID year, kind of a washout of a year to see it all. So we're going 22, 23. Next year, you'll see the exact same two slides with 24's version. So we can continue to track it in a post-COVID era.
So that transitions us to the results of the spring NJSLA. The slides that you'll see tonight were prepared by, we subscribed to a new data warehouse this school year. The board did approve us moving from Performance Matters to Linkit. Linkit has been very helpful in a number of things. First of all, working with our supervisors at the elementary and middle school level to have assessments created in there to collect the data. When you heard Sherry and Jody talking about some of those universal screening components, they live in Linkit. So it's a very powerful system, but they also helped us in creating some of the slides that you're going to see this evening. So the presentation from past years may look a little different than what you've seen in the past with some of the charts and graphs, so I'll orient you to those now. So we'll begin with our English language arts. This chart represents all of the students in South Brunswick who participated in this test. It shows us our students in grade 3 through 9. One of the things I would point out here is that this is, 9th grade is the only year that the ELA, NJSLA is administered. Years ago, we used to test our 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th. So we are only testing our 9th grade. We're meeting a federal requirement to do so, to offer a test to our students in the high school. So that's why you see it only going up to grade 9. Remember, our 11th graders take the New Jersey graduation test, and that's also in March. You can see the number of students that were tested in that second column, and the way we receive our results about NJSLA is in 5 categories. Level 1 is not meeting expectations. Level 2 is partially meeting. 3 is approaching. Those 3 categories are still not at the grade level benchmark. And then the meeting and exceeding are. One of the things I think is important to highlight is that South Brunswick continues to exceed the New Jersey scores and the percentage of students that are proficient. I think what's important to note is when we get those results, that's information for us. Our goal is always going to be to key in to who the students are at level 1, 2, and 3, and what is it on those assessments that might be hindering them reaching that next level band. The English Language Arts assessment is online. It requires students to read several different types of texts. It requires them to defend their answers. It requires them to write essays, which are also scored. When we get the information, we have the ability with our teaching staff and supervisors to do 2 things. One of the things we do is we look at students that are not meeting the expectations impartially, and we look to see what we can be doing to differentiate their instructional program. And our supervisors use this information when they receive a different report that highlights the standards that were assessed. We're able to look at the standards and determine how did South Brunswick fare on those standards in comparison to the state. This is the mathematics. And again, our students in 3rd through 8th take their grade level mathematics assessment. We are required to administer to high school students at least 1 math, the Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2, when they enter there. The reason we're still giving Geometry and Algebra 2 in high school, or the reason we do administer that, is that some of our students take Algebra 1 in the middle school, and they need a requirement to sit for an NJSLA math at the high school level. So one of the things I would note on this slide is that grades 7 and 8 is when we start to see some of that tracking where students are taking more advanced math classes, such as the Algebra 1 and Geometry. So the N, 8th grade, I think that number says 241 students took that test. The students that are taking that test in the grade level 8 test are not always the strongest math students. They're students that need a little more time to strengthen those foundations on those concepts.
So just look at that for a second. So in 8th grade, just so really clear, all the rest of the students who are in 8th grade are taking a more advanced level mathematics at the same time. So when you look at 8th grade math, that's about a third, a little more than a third of our students are in that. That means the other 2/3 of the students are advanced level mathematics, either by 1 year or 2 years. Okay? Then now look at the scores in comparison to the state on that column of 8th grade. You're looking at numbers that are very close to the state. Now that phenomenon happens in many districts, but not all districts. You should see a very significant dip once in this district you get to 8th grade, but in our district, more so than the state, you're also seeing the dip in 7th grade, because we start that heavier push in 7th grade more. So our 7th graders, we have, that number's 485 out of probably around 650-ish. Those other 170 kids or so are taking algebra or geometry even at that point. So that's why that 7th grade, which still significantly outperforms the state, yes, but look at the difference between 3 through 6, how much different the state numbers to the South Brunswick numbers are. In 7th grade, it brings it back to a normal. In 8th grade, it's still almost the same. Then you have to get into the other grades, which I'll hand it back over to Suzanne for now. But it's an interesting thing when you look at mathematics. And if you don't look at it with the knowledgeable eye, you would go, whoa, what happens in 8th grade? Why are these kids all of a sudden not good at math anymore? What happens? Well, that isn't what's happening. So
We have 2 more slides that will come later that show you the math breakdown by grade level. The NJSLA Science uses a different metric for how it measures performance. So we have a level 1, which is the minimal competency, up to a level 4, which is advanced. So 3 and 4 on this screen would represent meeting that standard. And Scott, these are the 2 math slides.
all right, so what we're working on here is a more in-depth analysis of what happens with our students in comparison to this test. And it's a very tricky scenario. When you look at our scores compared to the state scores, it kind of doesn't make any sense to us sometimes. So we actually talked with the experts on this topic, and we had a meeting with them because we just weren't getting it. And what the issue is, not every school in the state tests all the students in the same way. In other words, you heard Suzanne say that we have students who are, even in 8th grade, who are taking geometry 2 years ahead, right? So the problem is when they get to the next grade, they still have to take a test. But the test they're going to take is their next level math. So they're taking an Algebra 2 test as a 9th grader. The rest of the state doesn't really have much of that happening. So when you try to compare apples to apples, it just doesn't work. They're not testing those kids. The kids that are testing in, so Algebra 2, for example, is an 11th grade test for the most part. That's your standard. You take Algebra 2 in 11th, you take Geometry in 10th, take Algebra 1 in 9th. We don't do that for the most part. The majority of our kids are taking Algebra 1 before they leave middle school. And that is completely skewing the results when you compare us to the state. It's just a bizarre occurrence that Suzanne and I were looking at this. Evelyn, I think, was with us. We're like, why do our kids completely stink at math in middle school and the high school? What happens? They're great, and then all of a sudden they just can't do math anymore. Makes no sense. We were so happy when someone explained that it wasn't a South Brunswick issue, It was the way the state calculates the scores based upon every other school making their own decisions. Our kids are very advanced in mathematics and compared to the average in the state. And therefore, that is skewing the results of when you compare us to that. With that said, we still want higher scores. We now need to look, and Suzanne touched upon this, what is it about what we're doing versus what the test is asking that is not yielding different outcomes, right? Because it isn't all of a sudden that the kids are not as good as they were the year before. That makes no sense. It could be something we're doing that we have to identify, but we have to figure this out. I don't usually care about these scores. I really don't get too much into this because of the variables we can't control. However, the state of New Jersey has decided in its infinite wisdom that they are now going to start telling districts whether or not you are meeting a fabricated standard. And I say the word fabricated not by accident. They created a scenario where every district has a different standard, similar to like the funding formula. So then they're saying, if you don't meet a certain number, your district only, we're going to tell you you're not meeting the standard. What happens then, if they tell us that, is they're going to make us send letters home to our community saying you're not meeting the standards. And that's just a bad thing when it has nothing to do with how our kids are actually performing, but some arbitrary scenario the state has decided upon in its infinite wisdom. What that tells us, though, is we can't not care about the testing. It does have an impact now if they're going to start doing this, which they haven't been doing. They just started last year, I think, and now it's all over. So we have to do a little bit more with the caring of this. But if you look at that for a minute, look at the eighth, look at that, that's high school. Look at Algebra 1. Algebra 1, according to that document, only has 249? Did I do it fast? 59? 259? 259, I think. 259 students. Where are the rest of the students in Algebra 1? Does anyone know? No, they're in middle school. They're not on the list. Your strongest math students are not in the calculation. So if you compared us to the state by grade, we would look awful. And if the state is going to make those decisions, we're going to look awful. We're trying to figure this out right now. We can't fix that. We're not going to fix that. We're not going to have kids not take a class so they look better on a state's report. But when you look at our 9th grade algebra kids, 208, that's less than a third of the students of our algebra students. So the majority of our students are taking it in either 7th or 8th grade. So you can't use these numbers because it looks like, wow, why do we have no kids in algebra exceeding expectations? That's awful. That's horrible. Well, because all of the students that are already super strong in math are not here. They're in the middle school. Math scoring, since they've created this, has been a mess. And for those of you that have been on the board long enough, you've heard me do this exact same statement in the same way. The only difference this year is whether or not we're going to be dealing with the state of New Jersey issuing letters saying you're not meeting a standard, which may or may not have something to do with our student performance, to be honest with you. We're trying to figure out now internally what is real, what is Memorex. And for those of you old enough, you might remember that.
A lot of geometry kids that take the summer geometry won't even make the test.
Correct. So we also do the Summer Institute, is what Smitha's question was. And those kids, they're not here. So it's very hard to do the math and use the state's numbers to give a real full picture. It's very difficult because we don't do it the way the state wants to calculate it. And I'm okay with that as long as they don't hold it against us for doing like stronger than the state. So just, Laura, you have?
So where are the scores for our middle schools that are taking the algebra? Where are those kids
Yeah,
counted?
so they're there. They're just not on this page, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
When you look at a page that shows the high school math scores,
Right.
and you look at the algebra to algebra 2, we don't look great because all of the kids that have already taken it are not on the list. So there's all of your algebra kids, right? The reason the state's numbers, why we don't, why we're not a lot further on than the state's numbers has to do with the other districts and how they're doing this. All I'm saying is, without getting too deep, I'm already way into the weeds, is the variables of reporting out on mathematics after grade 6 is problematic to get apples to apples. So just keep that in mind. It's a very difficult scenario. And the more advanced your students are, the more challenging it is. So that's just that. And I'll flip it back over. It's the same with Algebra 2. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's Algebra 2 generally starts in 9th, but we do have some kids in 8th. You can see, one second, Roger. You can see 84% of a third of our kids are meet or exceeding Algebra 2. Those are the kids in 9th grade. The kids who are still have not taken Algebra 2 yet by 11th grade obviously struggle more with mathematic concepts. Doesn't make them bad. It just is the reality of different kids, that's the way it works. So you're always going to see that. But if we tried to show you the grade level to the state, it would be another nightmare to try and do a comparison. So, Roger, go ahead.
How is the state using this information, and is it going to reflect anywhere on us?
So our fear right now is the answer is they're using it in a way to create metrics. In language arts, it might work better. In mathematics, we don't know if it's problematic yet. We don't know. We're just starting to look at that. We just got it last week. A whole, massive amount of data we have to go through. We don't know if it's problematic yet for math. We don't know. What we do know is the way they've created benchmark meets is based upon, I'm not sure when they based it upon. It was based upon a score, I think it was a 5-year score average. Do you know? Either of you remember? So, yeah, they just reset it. So they reset it post-COVID, which is also another problem. So I can't answer fully yet. The question you asked is, how will it impact us with that information? I don't know that yet.
Do you think that the criteria is not adequate to give a better picture across the board?
When you see an assessment and you get results, you're gonna probably make a hunch as to why your results are the way your results are. And then your job with any kind of hypothesis is to test your hypothesis, right? Test it, see if that hypothesis holds true or not. If not, go to your next one to try and figure this out. It's very difficult when we don't get the tests to evaluate the tests. We don't have these tests, so we're not allowed to have them. So we get samples, we get standards, but we don't get the tests. So there's all kinds of challenges with standardized testing. The problem now is if the state's going to use it to zap districts.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
One last question. Is there any other district who falls like what's happening here?
So no other district, it's not like the state doesn't give us that. We have to go mining, meaning we're looking for information. It's not easy to get. It's a challenge to get. We also don't know what variables that district is dealing with. So you're always going to have a hard time doing apples to apples. However, with that said, the larger the set of data, the better the results for comparisons. So if we were able to do, let's say, 30 districts that look just like us, in a similar demographic to us, and we looked at all of those data together, that might help us. But looking at just one at a time, that's tougher. But the state doesn't provide that cleanly, so we have to dig. So in the process, actually, Suzanne, I think it was, let's say Tuesday or Monday, started the digging process. And then she said she wasn't coming into work anymore. It's a very, very, very tedious, but we're trying to answer those questions. Same questions you had, Raja. We're trying to do the exact same thing right now.
Thank you.
Yep.
Scott, on slide 21, I had a question. So what you explained just now was mixing the grade level and the subject.
What slide is that?
21.
Yeah, that doesn't, I don't have a number.
Yeah, these aren't.
The title is 2023 Spring and NJSLA Mathematics.
Okay.
I think you have to go, yeah, that's one, that one. Yeah. So the last 3 rows that you have there is just purely based on the subject, not mixing the grade levels, right? So those 3 rows, and correct me if I'm wrong, are the true measure of our performance based on just the subject level. So for example, in Algebra 1, I may have a 7th grader, I may have a 9th grader, or I may have a 10th grader taking that subject, right?
The number that is accurate is the district number. The district number is the real number. What I'm saying is you cannot compare it to the state number fairly because of the way the state is collecting the data. Not everyone is testing the same students in their district. If you're not testing the strongest or you're testing only the weakest, it's going to dilute the data. We were told that is what's happening on the state data. To use it in comparison to us, once you start getting to 7th grade and up, is very tricky to do. With that said, the district data, for example, Algebra 1, 57% of our kids are meet or exceeding, which means 43% are not. That should be the target for us, not the comparison to the state, is my point.
Fair point. So I'm saying for us to measure how we are doing internally, those would be the true measures rather than mixing up.
Except you can't measure one number to no comparative number. Because of the reason, I know I'm getting way too technical.
That's fine.
If I created a test, I was a 5th and 6th grade teacher. If I created a 5th grade test, social studies question, and I got the test back. Remember this in college, you might remember that you get your college results. What does the teacher do? They curve the test. Why do they curve the test? Shouldn't the test be an accurate accounting of what was taught to be learned? Why would it ever have to be curved? Because they've learned something about their test. We can't necessarily do that if we're the only ones looking at our own numbers, if West Windsor's looking at its numbers. If we can't compare, it's very difficult to say, well, I don't know if the test questions were the problem. I don't know. I'd have to hypothesize and then try to get the answer, which I would not necessarily be able to get. So we use state as a way, but if all things are equal, like it is in 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade, then at least we can say all 3rd graders in the state took 3rd grade math. Yeah. Therefore, we can look at that and say, okay, well, we have 67% of our 3rd graders versus 46% of the state. That's something we can say, okay, that's good. But once you get after 6th grade, is all I'm saying, after 6th grade, can't do that anymore. In math. You can in ELA. Sorry for that.
All
I
I'm
don't even understand what
trying
I'm
to say
saying,
is that if, I mean, in terms of the subject performance, those 3 rows gives me an indication of how our students are doing in terms of not meeting expectations, or exceeding expectations, regardless of grade level. Yes.
At a thank you, only at a very basic level.
Yeah.
Because if there's something wrong with the test, or the whole world missed questions 2, 9, and 12, because the questions were bad. I don't know that.
Right. Yes.
And our supervisors will use a standards report in Algebra 1, just use that example. They will use a standards report and be able to look at how South Brunswick students did on a standard in comparison to the state. and see if we were at or above the state performance. So that is where some of the curriculum work and the pacing and our program can be looked at, more so than just those individual student scores. Okay, so let me just walk you through. There's 3 slides that will show us how our subgroups performed in ELA, math, and science. The subgroups that were pulled out for this report are, on the far left is students that have been identified upon registration as Asian. The next one over is our Black, Hispanic, multiple race, which they've identified at the point of registration, or our white population. You can see that the shades of green are the percentages of students meeting or exceeding that standard. That gold is those that are approaching. What I would draw your attention to is where we see higher percentages of the red and the orange. That means that the students have not yet approached that grade level standard, and that's where the focus of our work needs to be. Remember on the earlier slide when I said we want as a district to see our students move between levels to continue to get closer to that level 4 or that level 5. The level 1s and 2s are where we need to concentrate our efforts, and you can see that this is true on the ELA. True. Thank you, Evelyn. Yeah, the gold, those that have approached are, what you don't know from that slide is, are they missing one question or are they missing a ton of questions, right? Did they just move to approached? So oops. You can see a district strength even in our subgroups in the ELA. Doesn't look the same in math. And this one's read the same way. And then I'll show you science because that one is those 4 bands. And that again is too much red of our students not showing that movement.
Just one more thing.
You want to?
So we talk about, people say, well, why would you focus on the term equity? Why do you do that? And then people talk about rankings and all those things. You'll never move a district up without moving up from the bottom. You won't. The high are high. You have to move up from the bottom. You have to target students that struggle and get them stronger. Your ELL students, special education students, your socioeconomically disadvantaged students, historically marginalized students need differently, period. If you don't do that, and we don't focus attention there, doesn't mean we don't have to focus on every kid, but if you don't do that work, you'll never move the full aggregate up. Just the nature of math.
Actually, you just hit on something that I was going to ask. Just talking to some other boards across the state that have been doing stuff like this or presenting this. One district actually separated and broke out those 3 cohorts that you just mentioned, the economically disadvantaged, IEP, and ELL. And based on what we just heard before, they're taking those NJSLA tests. So one of the things that they're doing in another district, and I'm not saying you haven't done it yet, you may have done this already, you just haven't presented, is to actually separate that completely out and show the distribution. Let's just use science for a moment. Asian, Black, Hispanic, multiple, and white without economically disadvantaged, without IEP and ELL, then you're showing, in a sense, apples to apples. But we're still focusing on those cohorts, right? We're still saying, well, let's look at where those individuals stand economically disadvantaged to those that are not.
So what you need, though, just so you
Yeah.
understand, if you're the only one doing that,
Right.
you have nothing to compare it to.
I understand that. However, if we are looking at, let's use science, in those 5 subgroups, if I took out those cohorts and I said, I want to see non-ELL, non-ED, non-IEP, will that change those numbers? Will those change those graphs? And one district has done it, and forgive me, I just can't remember who it is. And you see the difference. You see that the achievement levels, the distribution by achievement in all grades shifts. That you actually see a higher percentage in Black, Hispanic, white, and multiple in comparison. So I'm just asking, and maybe this is not for here, but maybe we could talk about it more at one of the education committees, is to say, let's look at taking those out and comparing it and seeing if it's any different. Maybe if it's just with science, just with one of them to see if it's different. But still using the data to help those 3 other groups, right? Economically disadvantaged, IEP, and maybe utilize that information going out to the community and saying, here's what we could do. Here's what we could do for you. Here's what we can work, how to have a conversation around improving those. Do you see where I'm going? Am I making sense to you?
No, but what I'll do, instead of actually answering that question in full right now, we will move it off of tonight.
Yeah, that's what
I would
my
have
point is.
a tremendous amount to say about that.
Yeah.
But I don't think you'd want me to
I'm
necessarily
sure
say.
I'm not, but it's an idea that I've seen, so I just want to throw it out there.
There was a reason why you might do that, and
Right.
there's a real danger
Right. I
to doing what
understand.
you just described.
I understand.
But in any case, we can bring that up at the next meeting.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So in addition to sharing the data, one of the things we need to do is make sure that we've shared with our public some of the things that we're doing to work with our students. So the students in the red and the yellow, the level 1s, levels 2, the multilingual learners, our special education population. So I'm not going to read everything on the slides here, but I'm showing you some of the programs that we currently have in place and some of the strategies that we use to support our learners. One point of pride, I would say, we don't yet see the benefits in these tested grades, would be getting full-day preschool, getting 3- and 4-year-olds into the school learning environment as soon as possible. So the hope is a few years from now, when those students who have been with us in our inaugural class make it to those 3rd and 4th grades, what does it look like for them? The other thing I would say is that we've supported as a district, you heard them talk during the dyslexia presentation, the Ready to Rise summer program, very phonics-based, the K-1 Foundations implementation. At the middle school, through the ESSER grants, we have additional instructional support teachers supporting at the middle school. 4 to 5 of them funded through that grant currently. And also the summer program that is offered at the high school for students that need additional support with their academics. This just reminds you that we are focused on individualized and targeted interventions for students, program opportunities. One size does not fit all. We need to be able to afford our students that learn differently with different programs and different strategies to meet those needs. Whenever we make a decision on a program, we make sure that it is a deliberate decision and that we are able to sustain and support. And now, just to kind of bring it home, some of the work that we do as a district, you know, stems from goals that we have. It guides our work. And so we are sharing this tonight. What I want to say is that we hope that before we start the next school year, you see these goals a little bit earlier than now, but we've always married it with our achievement So we're now sharing the goals, but I don't think there are any surprises for anybody that has been reading our school newsletters and district newsletters. So 3 goals that we're focusing on: the equity and social emotional learning, safety, security, and of course, as you know, in this upcoming year, fiscal. I'll just let you read that goal. It's kind of where our theme of Equity Becomes With Me comes from. That last sentence: goals will target one or more subgroups of the district, include relevant data, and follow the SMART goal format: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and targeted. And one of the things I would say is, when you heard Scott say that the district is only as good as when we move those students from the bottom upwards, that's what that's designed to do. These are some of the action steps we have. I think just the summary of this is that Scott set our goals with the leadership team for the district, which filtered down to the building level leadership creating goals, which filtered down to the supervisors creating goals, and teachers just recently submitted their own professional growth goals for the upcoming year, all connected and moving in the same direction on behalf of students. Safety and security is still continuing to be something at the forefront for us. We are very fortunate to have Jim Conroy working with us in his capacity, guiding us in staying current. There are 3 highlights for the upcoming year. We started the work with our reunification teams last year. The families will receive communication within the next couple of weeks about the district and school threat assessment teams. It is required that each school have one, and with that communication will be how families can report a possible threat. So that is another one of, it's a requirement per the state, but we will be moving forward with that. And we've also, as you approach some of our schools, you may or may not have noticed, we have new door swipes and security features that are in place. And then finally, this is the fiscal responsibility of our upcoming school year. You can read that, but Scott mentioned in his superintendent report early on about the advocacy committee. Feedback will be coming to our public, our parents, to help us prioritize some of our areas regarding programs and services. The BOE Finance Committee is going to continue to meet and look at that stakeholder feedback. And then the goal is that adopted balanced budget that we need to submit at the end per the state timelines later this year. And that concludes our presentation. I know that we took questions and comments during. I do see that Laura has her hand raised.
Yeah, Laura. It's just a quick one. Do we have access to the goals? Like you're looking at the equity and SEL goals, like the building goals. Could we have access to that so we could see the goals?
We can share those out.
Okay.
They live in multiple places right now, so
Okay.
we could gather it.
Okay.
So, very good presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I've been reading some stuff, and it was brought up at one of my meetings at New Jersey School Boards, too, that there is some sentiment that the use of this test for graduation is supposed to go away. Is there anything moving forward with that? Because they made it sound like that was it coming across this year. So, but I haven't seen anything
So the
since that.
NJGPA is what you're referring to. That's the one that all
Correct.
juniors must take. And
Yeah.
this would be the year that it's needed for the graduation requirement.
Okay.
And we have not heard otherwise. In fact, we are receiving all of the preparation to put that in place for the upcoming school year.
Actually, if I could just make a comment on that. I was going to make a comment at the end of the meeting, but November 30th is a lobby day in Trenton. If anybody would like to join me. There's Save Our Schools and some other districts are going to be going. We're meeting at 9 a.m. at the State House to lobby legislation to eliminate the high school exit testing. That is November 30th, if you'd like to join us. I don't have all the information yet, but we are pushing to get rid of it, because you could see how much testing is being done. The purpose of an 11th grade test, to me, personally, my personal opinion, is ridiculous. So hopefully we can get rid of it.
Well, Lisa, what they were bringing up is that they were looking at that they didn't have to do it in the legislature, that actually the
But it's
DOE was gonna
Right.
take it away.
Right,
and
but
that still hasn't
we got to get
happened.
we have to get to the Senate and to the Assembly to push through. I know that there are several senators, and I believe Senator Ruiz, I believe, don't quote me, is actually pushing to eliminate it, which surprised us. But I do believe that it does have to go through the legislature. That's why we're all meeting on the 30th to lobby.
And that note is I've read stuff by her. It's because where she's, she's from the Newark area, and
Right.
it affects
Exactly. One of the reasons.
those type of kids.
Yeah,
so.
one of the reasons. So hopefully, if anybody wants to join, please email me, and I'll be more than happy to help provide some information on it. Any other questions? No, thank you. This was excellent. Thank you so much. The next order of business is the first reading of the policies by Ms. Deepa Karthik, Chair of the Policy Committee. However, do you want, you have to make a motion. You have to make a motion. You got to make a motion.
I move to recess.
Okay, we have a motion to recess for break for 5 minutes. We need a health break. It's up to the board. Anybody second, and then we'll vote. Second, we have a second. Do we have a approval? All in favor to break for 5 minutes?
Yep, 5.
Any nays? All right, we have 5 minutes because it's late. 5-minute break. Can I have a motion to reopen the meeting? Who is that? Mr. Mitchell? Mr. Mitchell, Ms. Hernandez, second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving on, we are going to have, the next order of business is Ms. Deepa Karthik, Chair of Policy Committee, regarding the first reading of the policies.
Thank you, Madam President. The Policy Committee met today evening, right before the board meeting. In attendance was Ms. Alicia Khan, Madam President, myself, and Mike Mitchell, Dave Pulaski, and our Superintendent, Mr. Feder. We had the first reading of these 10 policies. I'm going to quickly read them out. The Policy 2270, Religion in School. Policy 3161, Examination for Cause. Policy 4161, Examination for Cause. Policy 3212, Attendance. Policy 4212, Attendance. Policy 3324, Right of Privacy. Policy 324, Right of Privacy. Policy, sorry? 432. 4324, Right of Privacy. Policy 5111, Eligibility of resident/non-resident students. Policy 5116, Education of Homeless Children and Youth. And Policy 8500, Food Services. I'll have a more comprehensive report for the board in our next meeting.
The policies will be on,
Second reading.
so please review the policies before the second read. So you have any questions, you can bring them up at the next board meeting before we vote on the following meeting. Any questions for Ms. Karthik? Nope. All right, moving on. Ms. Karthik did advise that we have a policy committee meeting prior to this meeting. Any other comments on that? We can move on if you don't.
No comments.
Okay, very good. And the Education Committee, if you can please provide a report?
We did not meet, we did not have a meeting in October, so we'll be meeting in later this month. So I don't have any reports for now.
Good. Business Operations, any report?
No, I do not. We haven't met. There should be a meeting coming up prior to the next meeting.
Any Finance Committee report?
No report. We haven't met, but we are scheduled for a meeting on November 28th.
Very good. And is there any liaison reports? Any comments or reports?
Liaison.
I'll wait for Mr. Mitchell.
I'm trying to pull it up now.
That's all right. That's fine.
I was able to attend well, first I want to say congratulations to the class of 2024 on a very successful craft fair last Saturday to benefit project graduation. Things ran quite smoothly, and the attentiveness and concern our student volunteers showed towards the vendors was most commendable. One of the vendors was so impressed by our young people that she emphasized to me, please give them a shout out.
Oh,
and so that's what I'm doing tonight. That's not, the high school is not my liaison school, but I felt I needed to share that with the entire board and community. So I thank them for that. I thank the parent volunteers and the advisors for putting this together. It was my first time going, and I even bought some things. I didn't plan on it, but I bought some things, you know, and I appreciate the work that was put into it.
Very good. Mr. Nathanson.
Yeah, just real quick, I was able to attend the Township Veterans Day ceremony at the municipal building. And the reason I brought it up is our band was there, who normally come. It's an annual thing, and they did their, it was, what was unreal was the parents actually drove them. The bus drove their equipment, but the parents drove all the kids there and back to school to change. So it was an amazing job by everyone.
Very good. Any other comments? No? Very good. Thank you. We will close out committee reports and board liaison. Moving on to public comments. Next, public comments on agenda items only. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Complete copies of Policy 0167, which govern this portion of the meeting, are available to the public at the auditorium entrance, online, or by contacting the board office. To permit the fair and orderly expression of comments, we ask that participants be recognized by the presiding officer and preface comments by announcing your name, place of residence, and group affiliation if appropriate. Please complete the sign-in sheet at the podium. Please print legibly, or we may be unable to document your name for permanent record. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. No participant may speak more than once on the same topic. Mr. Pawlowski will indicate when you have 15 seconds remaining. I'm going to continue with a few more comments. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer or superintendent. No participant may address or question board members. No discussion between a participant and respondent shall extend the 3-minute time limit. It is our plan to listen to each member of the public. Once all questions and comments from all members of the public are made, the Board of Ed may respond via email in the most timely and efficient manner available. All questions and comments will be noted. Note the following. The presiding officer may, 1, interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. 2, request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. 3, request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of this meeting. 4, call for a recess or adjournment at another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting. And 5, waive these rules when necessary for the protection of privacy or the efficient administration of the board's business. This first comment is for consent agenda items. There will be a second opportunity for the public to comment on any matter. Do we have any members of the public, Mr. Pawlowski, that have pre-registered?
Not for the agenda items.
Very good. Is there any audience members who wish to make a comment on agenda items only? You may approach the podium.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tirumalesh Kaudle. I live in Dayton. My kids have both studied in the school. The question I had is on the performance of mathematics, science, English. We saw that there are buckets of Asians, Hispanics, blacks, and whites. What I would beg to ask is, what is the percentage of the students? What is the percentage of Asians in high school or elementary? Those are the things I want for whites and blacks, Hispanics and all. That way we'll have a better idea on how we can help people get the school level way up. That is one thing. And the second comment I had is, comparing the state is great, but I honestly believe we should always compare somebody or some district which is better than us to challenge ourselves. So this is something I humbly request you people to consider. West Windsor is definitely a very competitive school. That is something we need to do. I want to go in a slightly I am going on a tangent. I studied in NJIT. NJIT had a vision to take Stevens as their benchmark. So this year, US News has rated them better than Stevens in computer engineering. So we should always try to compare ourselves, somebody who's better than us as a competition, and excel. But state is definitely mandated, but these are the two things I'm just requesting. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you so much for your public comment. Next. Was that okay with what I said?
Hello, this is David Ciccone. Ironically, I wasn't going to speak at this part of the session, but I felt compelled when I saw the agenda item on dyslexia. And this hits home for me as Ms. Mahoney put up that beautiful chart and the timeline on that chart. And what I can tell you is my daughter is proof this program works. She's been in that program since 2000, I think it's 2010, 11. And she has, everything Ms. Mahoney has said in her comments was 100% factual. Her IEP has followed her from kindergarten all the way to the high school. She still has teachers following up with her. It's been great. Some of them have followed up and now are in the high school. And ultimately, seeing her bloom in the school and her grades achieve, and I have to say it, she's going to kill me for this, but even with a higher GPA than both her brothers, we're so proud of her. And it's a huge credit to Miss Mahoney and the program. I can't say enough praises for her. She saw a need in the school because of her child, and she took it to the next level. And there's no other school district that will beat this school when it deals with dyslexia. So thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any other audience member that would like to make a comment on agenda items only? No, we will close this portion of the public comment section. Moving on to old business, there is none at this time. For new business, I do apologize, I didn't get to Mr. Pawlowski, but I just want to make two comments. NJSBA, I believe, was quite successful. We had some really good attendance on the part of South Brunswick, and as stated in the October 26th email, if you haven't already, board members, please take a moment and complete the spreadsheet that we sent out for workshop recommendations. I've received a few from those who have attended, and once I get the rest of them, and I'm going to ask to have it completed by tomorrow night, I'll review them with Scott for consideration. I did. I just want to give everybody one final chance. Yeah, sorry.
That's because I wasn't around.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you have anything that you want to add, please
Okay.
do so. And also, just as a note on the advocacy efforts, as Scott said, we did meet yesterday. I'm not going to go into any details, but the board and community will be provided with updates on the community's efforts during committee reports. We'll add that to the committee report. Okay? All right. Next order of business is the consent agenda review by Mr. Pawlowski.
So for this evening's agenda, consent agenda, we have a pretty straightforward agenda. We have some transfers, financials, a bills list, non-public technology order. We're increasing and not to exceed for DCO, our energy consultants. We're recording and awarding some bids for our student transportation. We also have some bids for athletic supplies. We have, we're rejecting all of our proposals for our high-quality tutoring services. We did not receive that grant. We're authorizing disposal of some property that's out of date. We have a preschool, pre-K projected enrollment submission, preschool operational plan update and a submission. We have an HIB self-assessment and approving some district grades. We're also looking at some security drill statement of assurance and a safety and security plan statement of assurance. Transportation jointure that we entered into. We're looking at an extension of some services for our special education programs. And we have a professional services for some occupational therapy services, an extension of a not to exceed. We're also looking to do an out-of-district tuition adjustment, displacement, we're going to approve a displaced student's tuition contract. We also have our HIB intimidation bullying reports, travel-related reimbursements, professional development, some student field trips. We also are doing a sidebar with our NJEA, approving the health and safety evaluation for school buildings, our checklists with Mr. Redfield went through all the buildings and the head custodians and some principals or vice principals to do our required health and safety checks, all passed with flying colors. And a last add was our maintenance plan and our M1, which is a state requirement and a comprehensive maintenance plan for all of our buildings in the district. Other than that, you have your personnel, and that's your consent agenda walkthrough.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Porowski? Mr.
I
Hernandez,
don't
yes?
have a question, but I kind of have a comment. I just need the public to know that we get this report ahead of time, and we're giving ample time to read everything that he just said, and we're giving ample time to call them, email them, or whatever we need to clarify something, to ask something. So when we get up here and say yay or nay, we're well informed of what we're saying before we say it. So I just think that's really important that you and you people out there in TV land know that, that we're just not coming up here and looking at this and saying, oh my goodness, what should we do? We are well informed, and we drive Scott and Dave crazy sometimes with our questions when they're trying to work. So just so you know that. Okay, go.
Thank you very much.
You enjoy them.
That's the part she enjoys.
I feel really good at it.
Mr. Nathanson.
Not to drive anyone crazy. I was a little upset, let's put it that way, that we didn't get the high-impact tutoring grant. Did they give, either David or Scott, did they give a reason why we didn't get the grant? Or just said no?
So that would require the Department of Education to communicate. And they didn't even tell, we found out we didn't get the grant from a newspaper article.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now we're hoping to find out something. And last time we didn't get a grant on the first try, they gave everybody a second try. So we have no idea, number one, why, and we have no idea if there's a second try.
So there was no official communication?
No, we found it buried in a website. But there was no letter sent, there's no communication as to the reason. There was no communication they even finished the grants until the newspapers reported it.
Wow.
So
Okay.
at least the good news is they're consistent.
So it's typical DOE stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
thank
good?
you.
To the left, Dr. Raj?
1.9, pre-K projected enrollment, there are talks of partnering with third parties. So I just wanted to know the criteria that is being used to shortlist the. This is again to ride on Laura. It is sometimes
give
we
a
do ask
global-
questions so that everybody, the public also know.
Yeah, I'll give a global, but Suzanne jump in with any more specifics. When we're looking at partnering with someone, we want to make sure of their capacity. We want to make sure, number one, their space works. So there's a certain amount of classroom space we need. There's a certain amount of class size, bathroom use. A lot of it is logistical. And then it's what is their capacity to grow? So if we were to give them 2 classes this year, do they have room if we grow next year, or do we have to outsource after that? Also location in the district where we can capture more students that would be close to their homes. So we're looking at all of that. And the process that is happening, Suzanne, Megan Plummer, who's the principal of the preschool, and Tanisha White, who is the family preschool partner person thing. Not exactly sure all these, preschool has these crazy titles. I don't know what they all, I can't remember them all. But those 3 have been visiting all of the interested party preschools. So we had sent out like a massive, who's interested? Anyone that's come forward, they're visiting. They have a set of criteria they talk to. They ask all these questions. And from there, we'll eventually choose who is the best fit for our district and marries all of the various complexities to do. We want to have a very good, positive experience. We want to make sure they have all the right capacity to handle us. And Suzanne, is there anything more specific than that, or? Good?
No, you covered it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you just show me what three is real quick? I just want to make sure.
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So, no other questions? Oh, Ms. Karthik.
Just a comment. Okay. And this is to Mr. Pulaski. I really thank him for his efforts for putting in the comprehensive maintenance plan. I think that was very, very helpful, Dave. To me personally, I think it gives me a bird's eye view of what we're doing in terms of maintenance for all our facilities. So thank you so much for putting in that detailed overview. It's I can't put detailed and overview in the same sentence, but it is something like that. So it's awesome. I congratulations.
Yeah, it was really good. Very good. All right, that's it. Maybe you have roll call.
Can I get a motion? and
Oh,
a
I'm sorry,
second?
motion for,
I'll
may I have a
mo-
motion
I'll
and a
mo-
second?
I'll move it.
It's getting late. Mr. Nathanson, Dr. Raj, second.
All right, here we go. Let's go. Mrs. Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Mrs. Deepa Karthik,
Yes, but abstaining from 1.1.20.
got it. Ms. Alicia Khan,
Yes.
Mr. Raja Krishna,
Yes.
Mr. Mike Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Barry Nathanson,
Yes.
Dr. Smitha Raj,
Yes.
Mrs. Lisa Rogers.
Yes, and I'm abstaining from A1.3B, that's for the reimbursement for NJSBA.
Gotcha. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, moving on is the second opportunity for the public comment on any matter. You are reminded of the previous statement made regarding public comment rules of Policy 0167. Again, at the podium, please state your name, state your name and announce your place of residence and/or your group affiliation. Complete the sign-in sheet, and you are limited again to 3 minutes. You do not need to spell your name. I apologize for that. Just fill it out. I know. So just, again, you are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any pre-registrations?
I have a David Chacon, but yes, we
Mr.
do.
Ciccone?
Mr. Chacon. Oh. I didn't know if he was already spoke earlier. No.
Whoops.
Thank you, David Ciccone, Monmouth Junction, New Jersey. I come here today to express some really big concerns that we have in our town. And that is how this election went, which was extremely disappointing. We had numerous candidates attacking each other. We had debates that weren't open to public. We had debates with people who knew someone. We had signs being placed near schools. We had signs placed on libraries. We had signs. That's all I kept hearing. So I took it on myself, and because it irritated me, because we are representative of our children, and our children see this, and there's groups in this town on Facebook that a lot of kids are in, and they're reading it. And we have a bunch of adults acting like 3-year-olds. And I felt that there's a need for an ethics committee, a Board of Education election ethics committee. So I brought that up to the Middlesex County Board of Elections. And they say, well, if you have voter fraud, let us know. Well, what about that? No, we don't deal with that. So I take my letter and I bring it up and I sent it to the Department of Education Ethics Committee. And now it sits there. I'm bringing this to all of you because I think we all need to look at ourselves. And I'm talking to mostly the candidates, not all, to act like adults. When you're running for an election, you're being looked at in every single way. You're putting yourself out there. You're going to be critiqued. You have to understand that. But you cannot just think you could put signs up anywhere you want, religious figures wherever you want. You can drive up on people's property and put tires through it. It's not the way we do it here. I moved to South Brunswick because of its school and because of the education. That is it. That was the only reason why my wife and I moved here. It's an embarrassment. I'm saying this here because I want everyone who ran to hear it, because it is unacceptable. I've been attacked, and it's not going to happen anymore. So I'm letting you all know I am working with the state. Ironically, it's with the Ethics Committee in the Department of Education, and they are going to hear from me. I am very persistent, and I will continue to push that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next. You keep going.
Tirumalesh Kaudle again. I had written my long name. Okay. This is a great town. I moved to this town in 2001 because it's a peace-loving, diverse community. The school district is reasonably good. We all live with limited resources. The school has to fight with the state for getting the money. We pay high taxes. We expect to get the best for our kids. Everybody is sweating to get that. I have a proposal. In this town, we are blessed to have very diverse, educated, with competency in various places. So we want to definitely create a voluntary group who will be independent outside the school and the board and partner to help the school district succeed better, address all the issues. How do we effectively spend the money? Whether it's giving a contract to clean the snow or do the building maintenance. So we should treat this like a business. Get the most efficient way to get maximum benefit of our dollars. We can also do fundraising, increase the awareness of our district where there is a necessity for money. We can get from the government. We should help each other as a community and raise the money. My elder son is autistic. I was a board of director in ARC of Middlesex, which is next to the Board of Education building. We have done some fundraising to help. So we will come with creative ideas, partner with the entire school to make the efficiency in spending the money. We need to save money, earn money, and spend wisely. Even the busing, no student or parent should suffer if the bus is cancelled or we change the route. Because of the time limit, I'm not going to spend a lot on this. We need to recruit the best teachers. We have to get the smartest teachers. We have to make sure that the recruitment is top notch. We have to evaluate the teachers because if we don't have the best teachers, the graphs are not going to change. All these things have to be done. Okay. So we want to form an independent committee. We will call qualified people. It's not an election, voluntary. Then we want to govern, guide, and help the school district succeed. So we want ideas on how we can form this committee. Okay, thanks.
Good. Very good. Thank you very much for your comments. Are there any other comments from the public in the audience? Yes.
Can I have some?
Is there a pen up there? Do you have a pen?
I have the pen.
Did someone steal the pen? Here, you
Okay,
need a pen?
Maybe.
No, the sheet's missing.
David?
Or the sheet. Did you take the sheet?
David took
Dave
the
took
sheet.
the sheet. We need that. Okay. I didn't get the last name.
Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to the board members that were re-elected. I think, most of you know why I'm here. My name is Srini. I'm from Southridge Hills community. I think, I have been coming here requesting, okay, we can forget now the courtesy busing, but, we came very close to resolve the subscription busing. It was stopped, almost when we thought that, we have a resolution. What are the reasons? I see that, initial perception is, it was influenced by a social media post. But however, after continuous follow-up, we got another follow-up email indicating that we have other components that we need to look into. So we're really looking forward for the board and the superintendent. We are looking to collaborate for the resolution, and we want to know where we are right now on the subscription bus. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the public? Nope. All All right, we will close this portion of public comments. At this point, there is no further business to be discussed. Please note that the next scheduled Board of Ed meeting is set for Thursday, December 14th. And be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of South Brunswick hereby moves into an executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10-4-6 through 10-4-21, to discuss the following. Student matters, yes, sorry, student matters. Be it resolved that the discussion conducted in executive session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the matters have been resolved. Formal action may be taken at any meeting. May I have a motion and a second to move into executive session?
So moved.
Mr. Nathanson, move. Second, Dr. Raj. Thank you, South Brunswick, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone.